Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Long, and I'm here today to give you an introduction to our next full unit, or our first full unit, which is called From Words to Meanings, and this is studying the play A Raisin in the Sun. What I'd like to look at is the essential learnings, the why of what we're going to be studying. Why are we studying this? What are you going to get out of it? Look at understanding the play itself, some background information that you might find useful, and just get a preview of some of the assignments and learning activities that you'll be completing in this 4-week unit. So let's first look at the essential learnings. That's the why. Why are we studying this? What are our goals and objectives? There are 3 basic categories that we're looking at. Your comprehension strategies, and this means becoming a better reader, working with different texts. You'll be considering your purpose for reading and figuring out which details you need to pay attention to in order to get the big picture and understand the text. You'll look at text evidence. You'll look at how an author uses language to help you visualize what's going on. Now, this is a play and it was actually performed, but as you read, you'll be using the details that are provided to help you visualize that. And you'll be looking at fix-up strategies when you get to a place you don't understand, making connections, and then developing responses to those texts in order to explore these insights. The second area of learnings that you'll have is in literature study. And in this literature study, the most important thing you'll be doing is inferring a theme that's not stated in the text. We're going to be figuring out what is the message that is ultimately the worth of reading this play, and how is that communicated through the author's choice of details and language, specific word choice, and the author's style. What is the author trying to communicate through the style that contributes to this theme? And you'll be doing a theme essay at the end of our unit. The third category of essential learnings that you'll be looking at is word study. And this means understanding when you need to know which words need to be clarified, when you need that dictionary, monitoring your own vocabulary, figuring out from context what a word means, differentiating between literal and figurative meanings of phrases. Sometimes we don't mean exactly what the words say, but there's another meaning being created, and analyzing the role of that figurative language and how that works in a text. So these are basically our 3 focuses: the literature study, word study, and comprehension reading study. And that is the reason that we are working with this play in this particular unit. To understand Raisin in the Sun, you need to have a little bit of background. The play is phenomenal for the way it deals with a number of different issues in our society, issues that were around in the 1950s, issues that are to some extent still around today. The play is definitely looking at race. The play takes place in 1959, 1950s. It was written in 1959, takes place in the 1950s in a black part of Chicago. So it's looking at African American struggles, not in the deep South necessarily, not in the area where Jim Crow laws were so impactful, but looking at African American struggles even in a northern crowded city. And what does it mean to be black in this society this time? Remember, this is as things were just heating up with the civil rights movement. Also looking at gender, expectations of certain genders and limitations on certain genders. One of the characters in the play is wanting to be a doctor. Well, she's female and she's black. Is it okay to be a doctor if you're female and black in the 1950s? So there's some issues there that are dealt with. And then the third area of issues that are still around in our society is socioeconomic inequality. And this means basically there's the rich and the poor and everyone in between. And what does it mean to be poor? What does it mean to try to get ahead when you have very little to work with? The context is this takes place in Chicago's South Side in the 1950s. And this is an area that has been typically occupied by blacks living in, you could consider them slum-like conditions. So the family in our play is living in this type of setting. So the play was written by Lorraine Hansberry. And she was quite an accomplished playwright for someone who died at the age of 35. She wrote this play when she was 29. She was born in 1930, wrote the play when she was 29, and she was quite a political activist as well. It turns out that some of the material from the play came from her actual life. Her father was very involved in trying to make sure that their family, the black family, could live in a white neighborhood. And it sparked a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. Eventually they were victorious, and it was a milestone or a landmark for black families who were trying to integrate white neighborhoods. So when she's writing the play, she's writing what she knows, which is what all good authors do. So let's look at the play and who the major characters are. You'll learn obviously a little bit more about them as you read, but just this is a bit of background information. The most important character you'd first meet would be Mama, or Lena Younger. She's the matriarch of the family. You could think of her as the grandmother, and she has just lost her husband, or the grandfather. And Mama is a very powerful figure in the family for obvious reasons. She has a son, Walter Lee, who is a grown son. He's a dreamer. He wants to get ahead. He's not content with just working the bare subsistence job, has big goals, big dreams. He is married to Ruth Younger, and she's tired with life. She's tired of being poor. She's frustrated with her situation and is a contrast to Walter Lee. They have a son, and Travis brings out the impact of poverty and the impact of these decisions on a new generation. And then another member living in this family is Benitha Younger, and she is Mama, or Lena Younger's grown daughter, and she's single. She wants to attend medical school. She has two young suitors, two young black men who are trying to win her affections, and the two men themselves give you an insight into different understandings of what it means to be black in this time. So we're looking forward with the central question, the central I guess you could say what sets things up in the play is this question. What would you do if somebody plopped $10,000 in your life? This is $10,000 in the 50s, probably be a little bit more like $100,000 today. The insurance money comes through. Mama Younger's husband has died. There's this insurance money, and everyone in the family has dreams for this money. Not all of them can be realized. What would you do with it? That is the discussion that takes place in the first part of this play. So while we're in this unit, we're going to be looking at 4 different sessions, and each session is 1 week worth of work. There are 3 acts in the play, so the first sessions, or the first 3 weeks, we will be reading the play and doing some activities alongside the reading. And then at the very end, in the last session, we'll be writing a theme essay, looking at the theme of A Raisin in the Sun. What is Lorraine Hansberry saying that impacts not just blacks in the 1950s, but all of us as we face our lives, make our decisions, and try to pursue our dreams. As you're reading, you'll be doing basically a dialectical journal. This is a 2-column journal where you'll write quotations from the play on one side, and you'll write the response to that on the right side of your page. So a 2-column note-taking type thing. You'll get a total of 30 quotations from the play, and you'll be using those quotations when you then write about the play, both in your theme essay and in some of the discussion boards and other literary element pieces we look at. Obviously, there will be discussion boards. The first one in this first session is on the American dream. Relevant today. Many people say the American dream is no longer possible for people, that things have changed economically, the difference between the poor and the rich is so significant that people can never get ahead. So we'll be discussing that. In the second week, we'll be looking at some quotations from the play. You'll be sharing the ones that strike you and evaluating different aspects of our characters. And then in the third session, you'll be looking at the characters' decisions at the end of the play. Do they do the right thing? Evaluate what they do. It's always easy to stand outside of someone else's life and evaluate what they should have done, or maybe whether what they did do is correct. So these are 3 discussions, and then the fourth one would be looking at your theme essay in a peer editing situation. We'll be looking at literary elements in this unit. We're studying the literary elements of conflict, plot, character, figurative language, and how that contributes to author's style. And then we'll be looking at what inferencing you can do when you're reading. The last thing we'll be looking at as learning activities is word study. Authors have to choose among many different words when they're trying to express ideas. So they have to choose the right word in different situations. Mark Twain once said, The difference between the right word and the almost right word was the difference between lightning and lightning bug. So looking at different words in context. And then in our last session, you'll be learning some strategies for learning some new words that you can use throughout your reading and your writing. The culminating learning activity for the unit is the theme essay. You'll be using evidence from the play. This is where you have the 30 quotations that are going to help you to illustrate and demonstrate and prove what the theme is for the play. This will be done in MLA style, which is a certain way of formatting a paper and formatting quotations and evidence that you use. And you'll be going through a peer editing and revision process and putting together a nice formal essay in the end. And the point of doing the theme essay is always, what is the relevance to real life? And so I encourage you to think about that. In the first introductory session, I asked you to think about your dreams. I want you to think about what it would feel like if those dreams weren't fulfilled and if you hit roadblocks. And as you look at the theme, that will be relevant to your own lives and your own dreams and thinking about how you're going to live your life. So let's go ahead and get started. You can continue on to the first session of Unit 1, and as questions come up, be sure to send me off a message or phone call or text. I think you're going to enjoy this play. It's pretty straightforward and has some ideas that we can all relate to. So let's get started.